Soni Podcast. We have the return of two previous guests today. We got Max Rauch and Roe O'Brien here to talk about their new project coming out. Probably out, possibly, or if not, it'll be out right around the time of this release. What are you guys calling it? Weekend at Mauchie's?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah, Volume 1. Yeah, so there'll be links in the description if you all want to check it out and listen to it, if you haven't already. Also, just for some context, you could go back and listen to previous episodes. There's the one that Max and I did. I think that was more recent than the one that Roe and I did. I think Max was number 48, which was November 2024. And then Roe was a little further, a little earlier, July 18th, 2024, number 42. So you could go back and get some interesting context about anything we hadn't talked on here before this. But yeah, let's crack it open. How you guys doing?
Good.
Pretty good.
Good to be back.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Thanks for
it's
having
apropos.
us.
Yeah, it's apropos. I've been pretty busy lately, so it's taken me a while to get the past few episodes out, and I actually just finished editing the episode where Harrison and I were talking about Harry's killing it.
Oh,
last
nice.
night, Max,
That's actually.
so.
Oh, wow.
I'm so behind. I have like such a large queue of like unlistened to music that I need to listen to, and that is next in my queue. So I will be listening to that very soon because I've also been busy and I'm just like so behind on everything. And I know that came out a while ago. Definitely been meaning to listen to it.
I think it was like last summer.
I'm so sorry. I'm so behind.
Oh, no.
Y'all.
I mean, well, the project that we worked on, I realized the project that we're promoting here right now.
Right.
We finished that in 2023.
We did it. We put the vocals on. We put the final vocals on in January of 2024.
But yeah.
But then, like, I had like a major surgery after that point.
Right.
Then we needed, and then I think I drafted up the like little press kit that I've been, that you have, Rich, and then I think we were like looking for art, and finally that kind of aligned, and then I'm like, okay, great, now we can actually choose a release date. But it's tough. It's hard being a DIY artist.
Yeah.
It's becoming harder for me. I don't know about you all, but like all of the little details,
yes.
especially having a day job and having kids, and
yeah.
like
I don't even have the kid factor, and I too feel like I'm struggling because it's just, I think there's just like the to-do list. It seemingly like never ends. It always feels like there should be something you should be doing or working on. So I feel and hear that hard.
For sure. But we're here, so why don't we dive in?
Yes.
I think, this was a really cool project, and Roe, we were talking about it just a couple minutes ago. I think even before we dive into the specifics of it, it might be good to kind of give that backstory of how this project came to fruition. I don't know which of you wants to crack that open, but... How about it?
I'll crack it because I think it was...
Yeah, crack it.
Crack that egg. Gonna sizzle that for you. I think, it was initiated, I think, by me. So the lore is... the canon is basically Max, to listeners who might not know, Max is in a really awesome band called Lake Effect, and Lake Effect put out an album called Temporary Parade. And I listened to that when it came out, and I truly, truly was blown away by it, and I loved it. And I felt like while I was listening to it, and I had met Max already, and like had worked with Max already, and like knew who he was. But I don't know. I listened to that album, and I was like, this is so good. I felt like every song was absolutely incredible, and I felt like just from listening to it alone, I just felt like an instant like simpatico with Max and myself just by listening to the songs that were on that record. And I think I immediately was like, man, I wonder, if we could just write some songs together, like what would that be like just, as a project. So I basically approached Max and I was like, can I like book some time with you? Like, let's just do like a week, like let's do like 5 days when like we're both free. Let's start from scratch. We come in with nothing and we just like see what happens in those 5 days.
Yeah.
And so it was like a grand experiment of like just two songwriters with nothing. What will manifest? And the EP, Weekend at Mauchie's Volume 1, is what manifested.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool because it's like it literally was just like written and recorded, and like what you hear on there is really just like 5 sessions, and that's all the writing, all the recording, the production, and then we had Doug Gallo mix it, and that added like another extra like little touch to it that made it real nice and shiny.
I'm not familiar with Doug, so
he works on a lot of records with a lot of different Jersey bands. Really great, talented engineer, producer. Roe, I think, just made a record with him, actually.
I did. So actually,
she could probably talk more about that. Yeah.
Here's what's also crazy about Doug Gallo. So first of all, yes, Doug Gallo mixed and mastered this project. He also has like little guitar parts here and there that he added in that I think bring a lot more like life and energy to some of the songs, which was phenomenal. But yeah, so funny story about Doug Gallo as well is that Doug was the one who recorded, mixed, and mastered, correct me if I'm wrong, Max, Temporary Parade. I think he did everything for you guys for that record. And so I didn't know who Doug was until I was looking at like the Temporary Parade stuff. You know, everyone's like
the
posting
credits,
and like tagging each other and stuff. And I'm like, Doug Gallo. I was like, damn, because one of the things aside from the songwriting that I love so much about Temporary Parade was that it sounded incredible. I was like, truly, like I was really blown away by like the quality. And I'm like, this isn't like some schmo like throwing stuff together. Like this sounds really good. And so started looking into who Doug was, and then Doug and I got introduced because I started following him on Instagram. Maybe I sent him a message like, hey, like I really love this record. And then Doug had like a studio cancellation. This also was like in summer, I think, of 2023. He had a studio cancellation open up, and I had just finished a song, which was, to the Roe Knows best fans out there, was Spent the Summer Alone. I had just finished writing that. I felt really good about that, and I was demoing it. And I was like, hey, you have this cancellation. Like, could we do this? I think it was like a weekend in July. And met him for the first time. Basically, I took that cancellation and I booked it. And Doug and I made the studio recording of Spent the Summer Alone. And I was truly so blown away by that weekend and that process. And Doug and I had really good simpatico and worked really well together. And yeah, and then I've just been like a fan of Doug like ever since, and so it was just total common sense, I think, to loop him in on this project as well. And he's incredible. He like really delivered. And we did we do have a record coming out that Doug and I worked on. Hopefully for Roe Knows Best folks, it'll be Roe Knows Best first like LP album, hopefully out by the end of the year. But yeah, it's really exciting to work with Doug. I agree with everything Max said. He is so talented. And just he's not just like talented and like a producer and engineer and like kind of understanding of gear, but he's also just like a really great intuitive songwriter. And he's one of the few people I've worked with where I just feel like we're locked in. Like we understand one another. We understand, like we grew up with similar musical references. I think there's like an emotional thing that we're always trying to like aim for with crafting a song together and like recording it. I just feel really connected to him in that way, and we'll always work with him if given the opportunity.
How many songs did you record?
So we did 8, and then I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to also add Spent the Summer Alone to the album as well. So like the album will have a total of 9 songs, and then Spent the Summer Alone will be that single. But we did 8 songs, and they are like, I think some of my most ambitious, I think in terms of like arrangement and studio stuff, and like, and it just started out with like, I had some songs that were done, and I was like, let's just record these. And then I was like, well, here's 4, I have 4 more. And so like, we just kind of booked time, and before we knew it, we had, an album on our hands. So, excited about that. And yeah, big fan of Doug. But that's how I was connected really with Doug, and it was again through Temporary Parade and Max and Lake Effect, and so he also lent his talents to Weekend at Mauchie's as well.
That's so cool. So all right, so Max, I have an interesting question for you. If it's I think it was you when we talked when did we in the last episode. Where your advice to everybody was, if they're coming to Domestic Bliss, your recording studio, right? To come in with something prepared, right? To know what you're going to do. You remember that?
Yeah.
And Yeah, like this is the opposite.
It's kind of the
approach.
opposite of that. Yeah.
Right,
Well,
right.
I guess
And elaborate. I know that it's not even contradictory. This is a different situation.
no, yeah, because
so
it's like a different.
go-
It's
yeah.
a different scenario. You know, like from the jump, Roe kind of explained that she wanted to create something from scratch. So if that's like if somebody's like upfront about that, like, and that's their intention, then like of course, yeah, let's do it. I kind of meant more so like a band not having.
No,
their,
no, no. I
yeah.
know that.
Yeah, yeah.
But and Harry's killing it had a similar approach, right? Where you guys are kind of
Yeah.
just writing on the fly.
Yeah,
How do
I
you-
think that kind
How
of
do
like
you like that?
Oh, you're freezing a little bit.
I know it's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that with Harrison, it's just I've known Harrison for so long that he's another person that could just kind of come in and we could just throw ideas at the wall. It doesn't have to have like a set protocol, you know?
I also think too, like if I can jump in too, I think with Harrison and myself, I think both Harrison and myself have recorded with Max prior, and I think have like established in some capacity that like we can come in. I think like we can maintain a session and like I think like know what we're doing. I can't speak directly to Harrison because I've never recorded with Harrison before, but I know for me like I'm a nut and like I did record like with Max before, and like I'm somebody who becomes insanely prepared when I go into the studio, and it's like I'll bring stems. I have chord sheets now. I mean, Max and I haven't recorded like that in a little bit, but like I think yeah, it's like had established that like I absolutely usually come in very prepared, and I also understand that advice to bands too, right? Because I think you don't want this to be like. You don't want to cultivate a vibe where it's like Guns N' Roses and like the 80s and everybody's like drinking and partying and carrying on and there's like no music being done and poor Max is just sitting there, right? I mean, like that's never any fun. But I think too, I think what's great about coming in prepared for certain in certain respects and certain arenas is that you know, you can still have fun. It can still be cool and you can come in prepared. But yeah, I think for this, it was the inverse, just to kind of like to play with that and be like, cause I think too, it's like, if we think about, I don't know, again, I was like using Guns N' Roses as like a comedic example, but like if we think about like, I don't know, like whatever the recording culture was in like the day and age of like major labels and like the label is telling you to go to the studio and like maybe like they'll book out like 3 or 4 months and you're gonna like create your album, like you have all this time and like a lot of stuff with all that time and money allotted by studios and the culture or whatever, yeah, you'd probably, if you played your cards right and you had a good person in charge steering the ship, you probably would get you know, songs written and stuff within that time. But I feel like nowadays, at least for me, I can't imagine working like that and coming in totally unprepared unless if like, again, like we dictated the time. It was like, okay, all we have is 5 days here. Like we got to figure something out in 5 days. And I know Max and myself are like really hard workers. Like I think like we could take a deadline like that and be like, okay, we're going to have something in 5 days. But when I go into the studio, even for my own stuff, Lord, yeah, I absolutely have like a plan. I probably want to talk to the producer about that plan and see if that like aligns with them, right? But yeah, it was a cool little, it was like a game. It was like, you know, what can we do in 5 days and you know, and will it be good?
You read my mind, Ro. I was going to ask you that exact question, right? Because so how did you all like that, right? Because it isn't. Maybe Max has done this with other artists. So I was going to ask. You were giving that advice.
I mean, like I think I've done it just with like friends. Maybe not on maybe not like in the studio, but like I've definitely co-written songs and demoed them with friends, like in short periods of time where we've like kind of like Keith from Lake Effect, like that's kind of how we used to write a lot of the time, is we would just get together for like, and we would chill for like a few days on end. Back when, you know, we were in our early 20s, we would chill for a few days on end and just write stuff and demo it. And so I have worked in that way before, but never in like this studio, you know, setting, or on like such a deadline where it was like, all right, we have 5 days, let's try to figure out. Like, but it was just like, it felt natural. That's the thing I want to kind of stress about it, is like, it never, even though we were like, okay, we're going to do this and this is the plan, it never once felt like, oh fuck, like, are we going to come up with anything? Like, Like, we were just flowing the entire time. So I wasn't really like, there was no like nervousness or like, how is this going to work? Like, I just knew it would work, you know? I don't know.
I agree.
Of course, yeah.
And I think when you asked Rich, like, how did it feel and how did that go? I think it felt to me incredibly liberating because there was not that like I feel pressure when like writing my own songs, but I think at this stage of my, musical career, I think like even if I'm writing something new, it's like knowing that will now add to the portfolio or the discography, if you will, of like the rest of my songs. And like, I don't know, like what does that mean in terms of like the entire discography? I don't know. Sometimes I think as an artist, as you continue to record and write and release material, that's like a thought. Like, how does this land among the breadth of everything else I've created? But I think, I remember that first session. Oh my God, it was like vacation. It was like summer camp. I think I even was joking with you, Max. I was like, this feels like songwriting summer camp. Like I literally felt like a kid, and like this was summer camp, and how fun. It was like the summer. I think it was like sometime in like September that we were recording.
Yeah, it was like early fall, maybe like that time period where summer is turning into fall.
And it was just so exciting to be like, oh, all we have to do for like these next 5 days is like write cool songs. Like, it truly was like a where do I sign up? And I also think too, I'll mention this just like very briefly for context. I had done a songwriting retreat with Ace Enders of the Early November the summer prior to this. And in that retreat, it was very much kind of like we went to Ace's studio. There were other people too. You were like able to sign up for it. And we just kind of like wrote songs all day and co-wrote with people. And I had really never done that at that point with anybody. I mean, like I was like in a band in high school, and like that was, I think, my co-writing experience. I've pretty much been writing solo like since like 2006, baby. That's like how it's been. But I think in that songwriter retreat, I think I learned it was okay to like be vulnerable, let my guard down, try different things, and learn how to like work and collaborate with people. And at the end of that week, I was just like, oh, like I can do this. Like, and if, and like, I think, I don't know, it like by doing it, I was like, oh, if I can do this here, I can do this anywhere and with anybody. Because I feel like that's the level of songwriter I'm at right now. And so perhaps if I had not had that experience, maybe I would not have reached out to Max, because I wouldn't have had that like comfort level of like, I think maybe like knowing my own abilities, if that makes sense. But I think, like after that experience, I was like, oh, I just want to like do this with all my friends, like, and then it just so happened that like I really just got into Temporary Parade, and Max was open to it, which I was like so grateful for.
Yeah, no, this all makes sense, and it's really cool. I mean, I think it's something that I haven't seen as often in like the DIY scene, where people are kind of just doing these. You almost think of it like a hip hop style, where it's like, I'm going to show up to the studio today, and we're going to work with this beat, and I'm just going to write a verse. I think of like the Wu-Tang Clan or someone like that. Yeah,
it's fun. I think like it's. I think sometimes creating creative constraints in that way, whether it's like a deadline or whatever, is sometimes helpful and like juices up like the creative process. And I think that's what happened here with Max and myself. And I think we just found ourselves like so stoked every day to work on stuff and to share ideas. And speaking of like that kind of like maybe like hip hop mentality, I mean, usually the way sessions would run is like Max would very easily and expertly just start playing like a little riff, which is something that is not really in my talent wheel. I feel like I'm like a chord gal. I have to get into more riff making, but Max is very good at just coming up with something, and immediately, even with like the first track of this EP called Ghost Town, I remember Max was like, how about something like this? And it's the beginning of Ghost Town. And that immediately to me communicated a certain vibe and a certain energy.
Like a feeling. Yeah.
Yes. And then I was like, oh, I got lyrics. Like, I'm gonna make something up. And so,
yeah, I feel like we fell into that groove like very early on in the process, where it was like, we kind of just assumed our roles without even speaking about it.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It was kind of like I just started doing my thing and you started doing your thing, and then it was like, all right, this is how this is going to work for the rest of the time.
Yeah, and it's funny too because there probably was a point where I was like, "Do you want to like write something?" Or like, I was like, "No,
I was like, not really,"
because I didn't want to like usurp that role. I mean, I
didn't care. I was just happy to like create, you know.
Absolutely, and I love lyric writing. I mean, it's like one of my most favorite things.
Like you were cooking, I wasn't gonna get in the way. I was like, just you're cooking to do your thing, like, you know. I'm not. Yeah. You got to know when to like not get in the way.
For sure. And the order of the tracks too on the EP is like the order that we wrote them, and so that's basically you're like basically hearing the progression of like our session. So like Ghost Town was written day 1, Friends with Aliens was written day 2, Shark Attack was written day 3, and then To Be Loved was written day 4, and then I think like day 5 we just might have like added things. We just kind of like worked.
It was
on
like
everything.
a finalized like that was later on too, right? That was like a month or two later. Couple months later, right?
I think we
did that 5th session.
Oh yeah. Well, we did another session as well for me to like add regular vocals to that.
I
too.
got you.
We did
I
that, like,
remember
a couple
now.
months
Yeah.
But you know, it was cool also to see. I think because I think like when I listen to it now, like what we did, like Ghost Town to me is like Max and I dipping our toe into the water of collaboration. And
yeah,
it's
like seeing what it looks like.
And Ghost Town to the listener, if when you listen to Weekend at Mauchie's Volume 1, which I think you should do, dear listener. But like Ghost Town too, it's like it's a very kind of funny story, like with like some 420 humor about a guy who thought he was dead, but he really just got too stoned. And it was just like a thing for us to like laugh about, and it's just what manifested, I think, lyrically based on the riff that Max was playing at the time. Once we got that solidified and we were like, okay, cool, like, wow, like we have a song. The next day with Friends with Aliens, I think both of us were just like no holds barred, like we're just gonna like throw
to me
down.
that was like the peak, I think.
Yes,
for
I
me.
agree.
I was like, we're cooking, like
we were like on one with Friends with Aliens, and there's just like so much cool stuff in there, and yeah, and then I think Shark Attack day 3, I think like stuff just got, we were just like we were just weird. We were like, let's just be weird with it. And so that was like a kind of like be weird song. And then I think with the 4th track, which is like a little more serious, I think we just kind of got into like a more, I don't know, like I think like open, it was like, not that they're like joke songs. I like to prefer them as like fun songs, like the first 3 songs on the EP. But like, I think after like when we got to day 4, I think like Max and I had truly probably connected the deepest we ever had.
Yeah,
in
for
our
sure.
relationship.
For sure.
And so then we ended up kind of writing this like serious song, and we were very pleased with the way that how that came out too.
It was like, this one doesn't really fit with the others, but it's cool.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely,
it's like,
absolutely.
But the goal was just to kind of do whatever came out. So it was like,
yes.
It was funny how it was like it progressively got less fun. Like the songs progressively got like a little less goofy.
Yes.
After the Friends with Aliens song, and then it just kind of like, and then we culminated with the one kind of more serious or sincere,
absolutely,
track.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. This answered so many questions that I had to have without even asking you all.
Awesome.
You're doing great. I wanted to know a bunch of this. One thing I think we should talk about that I'm glad I'm noticing this because I'm looking at the track sheet right now. We should probably speak what those roles actually were, because I can see it in front of my face, but the listener might not, of what you all were actually doing in the session.
I like don't remember what I did.
Well,
like some of it. Like I know I played a lot of guitar, right?
Yeah, no, I wrote everything down as soon as I could, I think.
Yeah, that's smart.
And it's in the like the EPK that I created and shared with Rich. But yeah, so for Ghost Town, Max, you did rhythm guitar and background vocals. Friends with Aliens, you did rhythm guitar and bass and drums. I honestly wouldn't remember any of this either if I hadn't written it down.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it just happens to be the page in the PDF that's open while you all were talking about this.
No,
so
that's cool though. Yeah.
Was Ken there helping out?
For
the last
one of
session,
the last session,
which was when this was in January of 2024. Ken came to kind of like help out because I was going to be like re-recording vocals, and we did re-record vocals for everything I think except Shark Attack. Shark Attack, I think we kept the demo vocals. We liked the way it sounded, so we kept it. But yeah, Ken was there for that day, and then also added a little guitar and vocals and stuff as we were kind of putting a bow on everything.
Mm-hmm.
Sick. All right, I'm gonna start with the first song so we can unpack it just a little bit, right? Ghost Town. We talked about it. It's this kind of like this guy gets too stoned and he is at school freaking out in the bathroom, and then John Kaz comes in and kind of talks some sense into him, right?
That's basically it. That's the movie. That's the movie that we made.
One thing that I loved. Go.
No, it plays out like a movie. That's all I was gonna say. It kind of plays out like a movie, yeah.
It does, and my favorite part is the one. So there's so many. Maybe you did this in the last session, but I'll just call out to Roe. Your singing is sounding better and better every time. Your voice reminds me of Jenny Lewis. I don't know if you know her.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of that, like early. What's her band's name? I can't remember.
It's Rilo Kiley.
Rilo Kiley, yeah.
Early Rilo Kiley. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I appreciate that. I love that.
Yeah. But yeah,
so my favorite that's a big compliment, yeah.
That's huge.
Oh, yeah. But I mean it. Like, that's the vibe that I get when I hear your voice. And you kind of can soar your melody through these things. And it's like you're making up a melody on the fly, it almost feels like. But you kill it. But besides all of that shit, I actually really like the "Oh no" that you put in there. I can't remember exactly what it sounds like right now, but I have it in my notes.
Yes, that's I think it's during John's part. I have like a little, what I call like a Princess Peach.
Yes, that's what it was.
It's like a little bit of a Princess Peach like falling off the Mario Party map.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no! Yeah.
Yes.
I think John sings "Instead I Got a Panic Attack," and I go, "Oh no!" And that was just fun ad-libbing that we were doing. I think like on that last day, like how can we, dress this up and I don't know, and just add more color to it.
How did John come into the part? Was he there on the first day?
I think that was a Roe request or thought.
Yeah, I think I was writing that part, which I will say too, for creative credit, some of the words that I had written, John had changed, which I totally dug. But yeah, this like bridge or this like guest verse that John comes in on, I think, a lot of this, I think I was putting down the demo vocal and the cadence of how it came out. I was like, and I think also too the original lyric. So the lyric is, I took an edible to try it, wanted to go on braincation. Instead, I got a panic attack. And I think prior to that, it was like, I took an edible to try it and wanted to go on vacation, I think was like my lyric. And I think actually Max said, John's actually got a song called Braincation. Wouldn't that be funny to put that there? And then I'm like, oh shoot. I was like, why don't we just ask John to sing the whole thing? And then he could be like referencing his own song. And I think, it was like, it kind of came up like that. And so God bless Max and John for making that happen and having John come in and do that guest work, because I think it works great.
You think it's hard to schedule with me? It's hard to schedule with it. That is a hard person to schedule with.
No, he's a busy bee as well.
He does like a million things in one day.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't know. It's all that caffeine, maybe,
Absolutely.
I pictured you at a farmer's market with like a Tascam recorder, just getting him in the coffee truck or something.
Yeah.
That'd be hilarious. Bringing the Tascam to the Cos coffee cart. That's hilarious. Yeah, no. And listen, and I think also too, what I loved as well, a couple things too about, I think, adding John to the mix for this. I love that this worked out, our idea to include him. Because I think it adds to like the Pizza Bagel lore, right? Because Max and John are Pizza Bagel. What a great way to do a Pizza Bagel release with putting both Max and John on it, right? On this project. And the other thing too is that, when Max and I had kind of finished writing everything, I remember having a conversation with Max, and I'm like, we were like establishing it was going to be called Weekend at Mauchie's Volume 1, and I said, it's great to do a Volume 1. I said, what if this was something that you did with other artists and then made a Volume 2? It doesn't necessarily have to be with me, but you could make a Volume 2, a Volume 3, and do like the same thing that we're doing, kind of like book a week.
Like as a concept, yeah.
Yes, and I think I loved that idea because, first of all, I'm a big fan of Max. He's super talented. Love working with him. He's a good friend. Like, I want to always boost my friends because of especially when you're somebody like Max. But I think too, I was just like, yeah, like, wouldn't that be so cool to get like more people maybe to like work with Max in that way and create cool songs that haven't even been written yet with like the same kind of idea, right? And then you could basically create like a whole like chronology of Weekend at Mauchie's if like you're really dreaming big, right? And it's all cool, and it's like it's based in that New Jersey lore of like we're making music in a basement and we're doing stuff because we want to, and we're making stuff that like we're making cool songs that like you can't get anywhere else,
Absolutely. And the world building, I talked, John Kaz also came on the show, if anybody wants to go and listen to his story, which also, like you said, he does a lot of shit. So he ended up talking about a ton of that on there, more than just music. That was number 44 back in August 2024. And one of the things that we talked about quite a bit was the idea of world building.
Oh, wow.
I think he does a great job at that in his songwriting. And I love, Max, you doing that little bit of world building and pulling him in, right? By adding the braincation. It actually levels up the songwriting for Pizza Bagel Records to a new level of inside joke, right?
Well, that's just it too, right?
Lore.
Because what exactly this lore, world building, and I think it's like I think we have established ourselves as being within this like Jersey, like DIY community, and to be quite honest, Max and I were talking to somebody else the other day, and we were talking. They wanted to know how Max and I met, and it's like Max and I met because of the Pizza Bagel Records Songs About Soup compilation. If Pizza Bagel Records did not do that open call, I don't know if I would be friends with Max and John. But that connection not only introduced me to them, Minestrone Zone, which was my track on the Pizza Bagel Records Soup comp, like a lot of people like know me through that song. And it's also it's kind of like insane to me how this song I wrote for the Soup comp, that's how like a lot of folks were like introduced to like who I am, which is like crazy. I feel like there was also somebody, I don't remember who it was. Rich, I don't think it was you. I think there was like somebody who like maybe we knew each other by name but like hadn't met. Somebody approached me out somewhere and was like, oh, like, you're Roe Knows best. Like, you wrote, like, Minestrone Zone on the Soup comp. Like, they equated me, which is just a bizarre thing. I'm grateful for it. But I was also like, this is insane. But suffice it to say that, like, that's how I met them. And I feel like through meeting them, I met other people. And now there's like kind of like a one big happy family, if you will, like within like this like little New Jersey DIY scene community that Max and John have certainly solidified themselves in with Pizza Bagel and their own music and recordings and what have you. But yeah, and I think it's like it's every song we release, I think having to do with Pizza Bagel or just like anything that we do with each other, it is kind of this outward invitation of like, yeah, like join the club, like see what we're about, like listen to the music, like do you have something to share too? Like let's share it, and that's why I just love singing the praises of my friends and the friends I'm connected to within this community, because I just think everybody's amazing and incredible and talented. And
a lot of talented people, yeah.
100%. And it's like I just wanna keep boosting that. I want to keep talking about that because I think it's important, especially too with, I was thinking about this a little bit in regards to like New Jersey and how like everybody shits on New Jersey, but at the end of the day, I think when you're here long enough, maybe you resent it at first, but then like you learn to love it. And I feel like in adulthood, I feel very much having like owned that. Like, you know what? Yeah, like were there some teenage nights or dark nights of the soul where I would have literally wanted to be anywhere else? Of course. But now I'm like, you know what though? This place made me who I am. This place is me. I feel very connected to this place. And because I feel connected to this place, I want to continue to be building and fostering sense of community, not just for myself, but for others who might not feel that sense of community. Because I remember what that felt like to not be, connected. And it sucks. And it took me a long time, I think, for me personally, just like kind of like find my footing within like the scene. And I think I don't know, I just want to kind of like pay it forward, if you will, as we kind of continue our creative journeys together. Heart.
The heart hand.
Heart hands
for the listeners,
yes.
Yeah, but on I agree with all that wholeheartedly. I mean, that's the reason that I do this podcast, is because I think the music's so awesome, and I think that we don't have magazines anymore. We have those blogs that people can go and read, but I don't know if they read it. I like to listen to
I was going to say, I feel like less people read blogs now, too, even.
Yeah.
It's like, forget magazines. Now it's the blogs are even like, people are ignoring that. I think
Right.
podcasts are they're the main form of media consumption.
Sure.
At this point, maybe I don't know if that's true or not, but it feels that way.
Right.
For this type of thing, right? Like for music.
And I think also too, it's like, especially with the DIY scene and community, right? I mean, like this is me and Max, Essex County homies, 2 songwriters collaborated and made this really cool project because we wanted to, right? There's something, I think there's really something special about that. And it's like in terms of like being our own archivists, it's like, I want to talk about this because here we are at a moment in time before it's released, but it's about to be released. And it's like, like we were kind of saying about like, oh God, I don't remember who played what on what song. And it's like, well, I wrote it down as fast as I could so I wouldn't forget. I think it's like too, it's like in terms of like the history, it's like, even if this just doesn't go past New Jersey or whatever, and it's fine if it doesn't, I think it's great if anybody listens to what Max and I worked on. But there is a part of me that's like, you know what, for posterity or for even our little local history, it's really cool to have this like little nugget or this little touchstone about like, yeah, this is what we did and this is what it felt like and this is what happened. And I think in a day and age where information is constantly fleeting and happening at a very rapid pace, I think it's so important maybe to just like record the local things. I don't know, or give voice to that in some way.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I don't know if you know him, but Harry Everett Smith.
No.
I don't know if you ever heard of him.
No.
He created this thing called the Anthology of American Folk Music back in the 50s.
Oh, yes. Wait, now this sounds familiar.
Yeah. It was like how Bob Dylan found like all those guys. Like they wouldn't have discovered probably like blues and folk music.
And also weren't there like the Lomax brothers who went around recording the blues artists and everything like that too? I remember that. Yeah.
Those are like 2 different camps that were happening at the same time. So Harry Smith basically had he was like a hoarder, and he hung out with like people like Allen Ginsberg, like all the beatnik people, and he collected all these old 78s because they were melting down the masters at the time to use in World War I.
Oh wow!
As bullets and stuff. So all the original like Blind Lemon Jefferson stuff was from like Paramount Records, and they were like selling all the masters. That company's not around anymore. And then Alan Lomax, he worked for the Library of Congress, and he went to like prisons and places like that and got like versions of songs recorded. So they're both really important. But what I like about Harry Smith is he took this thing that they used, because those forms of artwork back in the 20s, the 1920s, we're in the 20s again now, in the 1920s, the recording companies just had been able to record things mobily, like to have a mobile recording studio. So they would go to somewhere like Memphis, Tennessee. They'd go and they'd say, hey, you're from the Memphis Jug Band, you're Will Shade. Can you just go bring all your friends here? And they would go and they would do they'd practice, but they'd do one take of some song, and you might not even know who that person was ever again. And they'd sell them locally. And then all these things got sold off, and they were just ephemeral things. And Harry Smith collected them all and then put them into a compilation. And he archived basically what that music was And that's a huge inspiration on me.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible, especially at a time, too, where it's like, yeah, like, you had to, like, seek that stuff out. And, like, yeah, it's like sometimes it would be, like, one take. Or it's like, even I think sometimes I remember that,
I love one take.
Yeah, I love that. I remember, too, that we used to exist in a world where music is not on demand as it was. And, like, there was a day and age where, like, if you wanted to see music, you had to go see it. That's how you got it. Like, there was no recording or apparatus to play back. And even when those technologies were invented, they weren't that ubiquitous. Of course, like, they cost money. The quality was not great. And, you know, it's just such a different time. And of course, grateful to all of the people who did stuff like that, because it's like, okay, well, now we have these, you know, historical documentation basically of, like, genres and performers that existed. Would they have been lost to the ages? Probably, if nobody went and recorded them.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And at some point, someone is going to pop off, right? Let's assume. Right. Maybe not, maybe not. But if they do, it'd be nice to have all of the retroactively affirming story that you could access again. You could do that with Bob Dylan, right? You can listen to some of the college interviews and stuff he did before he was famous.
There's so much Bob Dylan content, and also for, like, other artists as well, probably. But yeah, that's the thing too. And it's like, I think it's good to have those touchstones to look back on, I guess, like, how far we've come, whether that's macro, like, as a society, or how far we've come as, like, a singular artist, or even ourselves. I mean, like, even if we talk about just, like, archiving, like, we're taking pictures. You know, we're taking videos, you know, even posting on socials. Like, I don't know, like, I still, like, look at my Facebook memories and be like, Jesus Christ, like, such and such happened 15 years ago. Or, like, I'm quoting Biggie lyrics 15 years ago, like, as my Facebook status. Like, and shout out to Biggie. I'm not quoting the lyrics anymore, but I do still listen. I was actually talking to a friend the other day. I do still listen to, like, tracks from, like, Ready to Die on, like, a fairly regular basis, because I still think that's just an incredible album. But yeah,
but the Diddy guest appearances, that doesn't ruin it for you.
You know,
no, I'm asking honestly. It kind of ruins it for me.
I'm going to answer honestly, because I actually, this is actually why I think I was talking with my friend about this, because we were talking about that, and I'm like, it's so annoying that Diddy is constantly interweaved in those
It was
tracks.
bad to begin. It was always bad to begin with. Like, that was something that people always.
I think we
always cracked on that.
Tolerated it, and I joked with my friend. I'm like not like a pro AI person, but I'm just kind of like, man, wouldn't it be great if, like, AI just, like, swept in there and, like, took out all of Diddy's ad libs, because the album would probably be fine.
I think you're onto something. I think you need to figure out how to have that, like, done and then
ChatGPT, please erase all of Diddy's
I'm surprised they haven't done that. I'm surprised that hasn't already happened, to be honest.
They should do that and re-release it. I think everybody would be into it. But Diddy aside, like, F that man forever. And I agree. I think all of his little interjections are so annoying, and we all just tolerated it because, like, the beat was fire and Biggie's great.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's just like, you know, yeah, we should get some AI in there and clean that up. But yeah. Very, very cool about, like, I guess, like, history keeping and archiving, and even if it just comes to this, like, little, you know, collective scene that we happen to be in. Because I think, you know, sometimes too, I've had experiences in my life where you're living in a moment and you're like, this is incredible and it will last forever. And you know what? It doesn't last forever. You know, stuff happens, magic fades, people break up, people move apart. I don't know, depending on the situation, of course. But, like, sometimes things that seem so solid, it's very easy to take them for granted. And I don't want to do that. And listen, I hope nothing that, you know, I hope nothing changes within this community, right? Like, I want us all to, you know, be friends and do shows and record together and collaborate. And I do want that energy and to fulfill and sustain that forever. But I also know that, like, the realities of life is, like, I don't know, sometimes people move away, you know, sometimes stuff just changes and priorities shift.
Yep.
And that's just a part of life. And so I think while we're in these, you know, creative or, you know, throes of creative energy and inspiration, and, you know, we're releasing a project or we're doing a project or promoting a project, I'm just like, man, yeah, maybe just so we have something for if the memory banks at minimum, like, let's just, you know, like, talk about it some more. And that's why I'm glad to be here doing this with y'all, you know, tonight.
Hell yeah. I was trying to think of a really witty way to switch into Friends with Aliens, but I don't have it. I was listening to you too intently, but I do want to switch to that because I do think Max had said he thinks it's the highlight of the album. I don't know. Or what did you say? Something like that,
like a
right?
peak.
The peak. But I meant like more so like the peak of like the recording sessions. Like I like all the songs.
As a listener, I think that this is the strongest song in my as a critic or whatever from my spot.
Both Max and I were like, if we were like in a label situation and we were like, you know, having to give something to radio, I was like, this is our radio single, like for sure.
Yeah.
And I think we knew that off the cuff.
I mean, Tom DeLonge would love it, you know?
I hope so. Hey, listeners, if you're out there, if you have a connect to Blink-182 or Tom DeLonge, I think you should send him Friends with Aliens.
Is it DeLonge or DeLonge?
DeLonge? I think I've heard DeLonge.
I think it's DeLonge, yeah.
With the hard G.
Yeah. DeLonge.
The people know who we're talking about. Tom from Blink. But no, and I will also say this too, I think with true to fact, Max did and I did come in with clean slate, but Friends with Aliens was one thing where we did come in with a bit of guitar riff inspo. I think like day 2, I think both Max and I had kind of brought in stuff because I think we were too like we also were like talking with each other like should we be like bringing in some of our stuff, like I think we were still trying to like define I guess like creatively what we wanted to like expand on, and I had brought in some recordings of like little riffs, again, nothing definitive, like literally me just like riffing, or Max, you know, had some songs or whatever. I'm just listening to things about like, you know, could this be something, right? And I did bring in a guitar riff that I do remember recording in like the summer of 2020. And I didn't remember how to play the riff at all. And Max heard it and he was like, oh no, I got it. And then I think actually Max kind of like made it better. And it was just, and when I said like riff, I think like just kind of like the chord changes or whatever that Friends with Aliens ends up having. And he was able to do that and duplicate that. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So like that kind of did come, like the inspiration I think like came from like my, you know, voice
demo,
note.
yeah,
like archives,
voice
and,
memo, yeah.
The inception of it, which I'll share for our listeners, because like I don't know, sometimes like I think this stuff is interesting sometimes when like I'm listening to other artists talk about this. When I had written this like guitar riff or whatever at home, it actually really reminded me of Dream Street, which to the listeners was like a boy band with like Jesse McCartney in probably like 2000. And they were like one of the things where like if you were watching Nickelodeon or something like
you told me that and I was like I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, and that's great.
I know.
And also too, there's some people I'm like, yo, do you remember Dream Street? And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, okay,
yeah,
like,
I had no idea.
There's like a strand of my DNA that was like absolutely Dream Street coded like for like my childhood, but they would be like it would be like them. There was like another like girl band. Play them and Play would have like as seen on TV like order the CD now like there'd be ads to like order the CD on television. But anyway,
what year are we talking here?
I feel like it had to have been 2000. And
somewhere around then.
I'm gonna look it up really quick.
I was too busy listening to Limp Bizkit.
You want to see the hardest thing. It was released on July 10th, 2001, according to Wikipedia. Okay. So,
what a time to be alive.
Oh my god. And so it was like all of these pop songs with like these like 11-year-old boys, and like, you know, I went crazy, right? I was also 10 at the time.
Yeah.
In July of 2001. And so, but they have a great song called I Say Yeah. And for some reason, it doesn't sound the same at all. But when I was writing it out, I felt like the chords in my room in the summer of 2020, actually, which is super crazy because I remember it being July when I wrote that, and so that means that like what's that like 10, 20? It was almost like 20, like almost 20 years to the day the album came out. I had these chords. But it reminded me of Dream Street a little bit. And that's obviously not where the song went, but I think every time I remember about like the inception of that song, I do think about Dream Street. And I also think too, what I was doing as we were writing is I did kind of keep playlists of songs I think that we were like invoking or like inspired by. And I think that's something
I remember that, yeah.
I'm going to try to like, I think maybe post that in the promo for like when this comes out. So like in case any listeners or viewers want to, listen or just see like what the hell Max and I were talking about.
I do. That's up my alley, so I definitely want to see that. You know, I want the Pizza Bagel Genius.
Yes. Pizza Genius.
Yeah, Pizza Genius.
Totally. So, but anyway, yeah. So, but Friends with Aliens, I had so much fun. I feel like we really felt like we were onto something. Energetically, I think Max really kind of got in the mix with, you were like making some beats. There's like a rap section, which was kind of crazy for us to do, but we did it.
Just going where the wind was blowing, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I really dig it. I didn't make the like 90s, early 2000s kind of pop
And that's
reference,
fine.
but
And
I
that's totally
think
fine.
that now that I hear it, it does remind me of like, not as much for me. It doesn't remind me as much of like Dream Street, or I didn't listen to that stuff. My sister did though. That's
Totally.
how I know it. I have a younger sister, but it reminds me of like, you guys know like Len, like Steal My Sunshine, that kind of stuff. That's like pop that we just lost,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Well, I think,
But this is in that chamber for sure.
I was just going to say, I think one of the things that Max and I have in common, and we probably discussed when we were recording this, was like, we are two like big 90s kids, 90s heads. And I think songwriting wise, I think we really gravitate towards that stuff. Like, whatever has like sort of like a 90s feel and sentimentality, or like whether that's like chord voicings or like songwriting structure,
Whatever it is, melody, all that.
yeah,
Yeah.
Max and I are like all about that. It feels good. It feels good. So I'll put that out there as well.
Yeah. Like for example, that last part, Forget I Said It, like that little hook in there, like that's just so
Yeah.
90s, and it's like a thing you just remember. You're like, what did she say?
Right.
Oh, I like that little tag there.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's like storytelling, right? It's like this alien that's upset that no one's paying attention to him, and despite the Pentagon's proof of UFOs, and so out of spite is like trying to lure people to the forest so that he can kidnap them.
I think that, like, yeah. And
It's that movie.
I think that came out too when like it was right around the time where like everybody was like laughing at the fact that the Pentagon was like, yeah, aliens like exist, and everybody was just kind of like, who gives a fuck? Like, it's like it wasn't even like, oh my god. Everybody was just kind of collectively like, yeah, and who cares? Like,
it was like all of these hearings. It was like all of these hearings, and like it did dominate the news cycle for like a long time. But I also feel like everyone's like, okay, we knew this. Like, I don't know, like everybody was like, we're moving on. We're moving on. Like the world didn't change. Which is hilarious.
yeah, it's like, are they going to pay my bills?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, the fuck do I care?
Truly. There were,
Tell them to go back home.
Yeah, there were some, I think, like, aliens are real people who, I think, perhaps, I'm not one of them, like, that, like, that would, like, goes really hard on this in real life, right? I'm not really, like, an X-Files person, but, like, yeah, I think there's probably people who, like, did feel validated, but also, too, like, yeah, I don't know. I felt like the general consensus was, like, cool. What's next?
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally. And yeah, I didn't make that connection either, but it is on point now. Like UFOs are definitely in.
Yeah, they're back in.
Yeah, we're like,
They're
we'll just accept that as also reality for like the hellscape we live in every day. Sure, aliens are real. Yeah, okay, we knew that. Great. Let's what else?
I mean, they're showing up just because they're sick of the music and they want some more UFO songs.
Right.
I think that's what's going on.
And yeah, maybe they'll like this one.
I was gonna say, they want Weekend at Mauchie's.
Right.
Volume 1.
That's what they want.
Volume 1.
It also reminds me a little bit, speaking of 90s, you guys ever see the Spice Girls movie? Because that thing
you know what?
It's when they have the UFO.
While. I have to rewatch that.
That movie is so good. Like, shout out to my sister for that, too.
Incredible.
Because I was not a Spice Girls guy, and I watched that movie, and I was like, this movie fucking rules.
Yeah, I have
When
an
they
older
blend-
sister, so...
So you saw it.
I got spiced,
I got spice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think those aliens would dig this. All right, and then so we go from aliens to sharks.
Yes.
How did another 90s, very 90s?
Yeah, I felt like
we were shark
were
tooth necklace.
we
showing
were
up.
on like a Spielberg tip. Like we were just on a total Spielberg tip with
We
our
went from
subject matter.
E.T. to Jaws.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you write with Roe Knows Best and Max Rauch, everybody.
I love it.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember how the writing for Shark Attack started. It must have been a riff. I think it must have started there.
I I don't know.
Yeah, I think it did start there, and then it was kind of, we were just building it up, and I think the bass is what came next, and the bass was like really pronounced.
I think we were going kind of like 80s new wave with that one a little more.
Yes, I remember it was kind of like we were talking about 80s new wave, which is really funny because throughout the duration of our entire recording session, Max had a B-52's 45 on the coffee table at Domestic Bliss, which we didn't listen to. You did. I'll never forget it. Because I remember when we got here and I'm like, this is so bizarre because I feel like this is a little B-52-y, but we never, it was a blue cover 45. I don't remember what the...
Yeah, that 45 is awesome. That's like... forget what's on it, but it's good.
It was on the coffee table the entire time of the session, and we did not listen to it, but it was certainly, it had a presence at the recording session.
Yeah, it's a cool cover, too.
Yeah, but I think, we
they
were
look
doing, like...
cool on it.
Yeah, it was very cool. And, it was like 80s new wave, and I think we were also talking about, like, bands, like, from 2005 or 6, like, The Bravery. I don't know if listeners remember
which was kind of like a rehashing of that 80s kind of new wave thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was definitely that kind of vibe. And I think, too, and it was just lyrically just kind of following what the vibe was. And also, too, and, like, I think we also, again, tying in more artists to this, the vibe. I think also, too, if we recall in our musical history, I think, like, 2008 had a lot of, like, dancey indie bands from, like, the UK. And I think the vibe we ended up here, cultivating, I think also reminded me of that, like, as well.
You're talking Franz Ferdinand. You're talking
even like Klaxons was a band I used to listen to.
What's that song that they have? I know one song by them. It's like Golden Scans.
Yes. Golden Scans. Yeah. I remember listening to Klaxons, and I don't know, like Block Party's probably in there too.
Yeah. There was an 80s song though that you kept referencing when we were. Yeah. I forget what song it was. Do you remember?
I have all my playlists.
I remember we like brought it up. We brought like the YouTube video up, I think.
Okay, I'm gonna look it up and maybe my memory will be jogged because I
don't think it's everything. The 80s song that I think of, even though it's just because of the lyrics thing. I think of the Jesus Lizard Swim. Yeah, I can't swim. You know that song?
I feel like we also need like a Rich Soni playlist that the songs that Rich Soni thinks of when he listens to Weekend.
I actually. Not on this album, because it was shorter, but when it's like I have to crack a whole artist, listen to their whole discography, I actually do that. I
That's incredible.
Do the ones, so I keep those secret. I don't know. I would release it, though, if the artist was interested.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Let me see here. Shark Attack. I'm going to look at my... here we go. Shark Attack refs. All right, so this is what I have on the playlist, which I will try to release in a more cohesive playlist. So this is what's on the Shark Attack playlist. It's actually pretty lengthy.
Peanut butter jelly time.
Right. Doesn't that be funny? Love Shack by the B-52s. So we did talk about B-52s. Heart-Shaped Box by Nirvana. I Feel Love by Donna Summer. Enjoy the Silence by Depeche Mode. Blue Monday by New Order. You, Me Dancing by Los Campesinos, which was another, like...
That's a 2000s band, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was like 08 or something like that, or maybe 05 or something like that. Atlantis to Interzone by Klaxons, Kill the Director by the Wombats, An Honest Mistake by the Bravery, a couple more. Jenny Was a Friend of Mine by the Killers, Dance the Night by Dua Lipa. I also, too, might have just added these on my own accord.
Yeah, I feel like...
Sorry. Find My Way...
They're all good songs. I mean,
the Paul McCartney and Beck. This was like a Paul McCartney song on his like latest record, or McCartney 3. Helicopter by Block Party and On a Plane by Nirvana. So that's
there was another song though I know that we talked about that I can't remember what it was.
Was it Time After Time?
No, it wasn't Time After Time, but there is a Cyndi Lauper reference in the exactly in the lyrics. Yeah, I don't know, crazy, but yeah, I think like lyrically too. This was like a little like. I don't know, like, sensually forward. This song was a little, like, sexually charged, but, like, kind of dirtbaggy. Again, just kind of, like, following the vibe.
Yeah, didn't you have, like, a concept of something, like, it was, like, about, like a dirtbag?
Yeah, I think that's how it manifested. Like, if you just read the lyrics, it's, like, clearly about, like, someone cheating and, like, knowing that they're cheating. And it's, like, perhaps reckoning with, like, the emotionality of that, like, maybe it's wrong, but also just, like, continues. But I don't know. Yeah, I think it's fun to, like, make these, like, little to make and portray these like, you know, characters,
stories,
because I think in the end of the day, it's like you can do no wrong with songwriting. It's like, I think honestly representing whatever you create, that's like that. I don't know. I think like that's the game. And especially for a project like this, it was like, okay, like there's no rules here. Like, you know, I don't have to, I don't know, like this, I don't have to worry that like, I don't know, like somebody gonna approach and be like, did this happen? Is this true? And it's like, no, it's not, but it's fun, you know?
It's a story.
Exactly.
I think it's funny how, like, as songwriters, you always feel like this, like, pressure to write about something that happened to you, like, or something that happened in your life.
Yeah.
Where it's like when people make movies, it's like they don't make movies with that intention, or like write stories, they're not writing with that. But there's so much pressure, especially like as like somebody who's plays the type of music that we do, for it to be like confessional and like autobiographical.
Yeah. And I agree with that 100%, Max. And I think one of the things I feel like I learned at that songwriting retreat I did with Ace Enders, or just at least maybe became apparent to me, like, and clicked in a way it had never clicked before, was that you can still write a song as long as the emotions are real. And it can still be authentic. It can still be authentic. Right. It can still be valid, and it doesn't necessarily have to be biographical. And also, I think too, for any songs that we like or gravitate towards, like, you know, something doesn't have to have happened to us for us to enjoy a song where maybe something is talking about happening.
But you still feel that emotion, or you feel,
exactly. And I think that's the key. And I think listen, like, the music I gravitate towards is the songs that I have like the emotional connection with at the end of the day. But yeah, and I also think too, I think Max and I probably talked about this too when we were like recording, just because we talked about a lot of stuff, and I think like the emotionality of or I'm sorry, not the emotionality, but the expectation of I think being in like a punk scene, or like a punk adjacent scene, or growing up listening to like punk music, and where these authenticity values are really heralded. I think sometimes it's at least speaking for myself, I feel like it's easy to like guilt myself into being like, oh, like at first being like, oh, well, is this is this true? Is this authentic? What does that mean? I think because there's so much, I don't know if I want to say gatekeeping, or like rules, or like values of which we feel we must subscribe to because we like grew up or were introduced into these scenes initially, and we were taught that like this is real music, this is authentic music, and anything outside of this is not. And I think growing up as an adult, and obviously having multiple emotional experiences, being like, actually, this can still be good, and not necessarily like be biographical. And I think I had a lot of fun, I think, playing with that idea when we were doing this project.
I just had mentioned this to Harrison too on Harry's Killing It, and I referenced Senor Kaz and his, you know, hot dog rapper wisdom here, that he's got that song, right? I think Harrison said it was, I wrote a song without a hook to remember why I write songs in the first place. Yes, and I think that there is some, you know, I'm saying it tongue in cheek, but there is some hot dog rapper wisdom there, where it's like, as long as you have the emotion, people are just going to feel it, like, you know.
Absolutely.
You want to close it out with this last song?
Sure.
I lost the PDF. I forgot the name. I'm sorry.
It's all
To
good.
Be Loved.
Yeah. I think this just culminated just at the end of the session. I also will say this too. I think one of the things that I think I forgot that songwriting like really takes it out of you. After like 4 days, Max and I were like cooked. Like
we were burnt. Yeah,
we burned on all cylinders. And I think by the time we got here, there was no more. First of all, I think we had connected so deeply on the other songs, and I feel like there was no more. I don't want to say like pretense or facade or whatever, but I just feel like we were just like raw human beings, I think, at the end of the week.
I think we were just genuinely tired too.
Yes,
like,
yes.
You know, it was like,
and I think we just had like a very frank conversation about the seriousness of addiction and how it pervades lives of others. And I think we just kind of had like a very serious, I think like morning, just kind of like talking about serious themes.
Like deep shit, yeah.
Yeah, like we had like probably the deepest conversation we have ever had with each other.
Yeah.
And I don't think we intended to write this song, but I think it was one of those things where it was just fresh in the mind after we had this like very long, I think we must have talked for over an hour, maybe two, before we started writing, because we were just like so exhausted. And
we were having a little like block too. I feel like there was like a little writer's block, and there had never been throughout the the entire process. So we were kind of like, what's happening? And then I feel like, but then that like led us into like a deep conversation, and then out of the conversation led that song. So
right. And again, it started with, I remember a lot of this pretty vividly too, because it did really always start with Max on a riff. And once Max really was playing it over and over and like figuring it out, and like maybe as he was recording it into Logic, that was really my opportunity to be like, what is this saying? I mean, the way sometimes I think by and large that I describe my own experience with sometimes like lyric writing is like, and I've never made pottery. Maybe I should start. But I kind of imagine it's like you have a lump of clay on the pottery wheel, and you're trying to put that clay into like a pot or a cup, or like you're trying to give it shape. And I feel like when I am writing lyrics trying to fit a song, it's pottery wheel, and it's like, okay, what is the clay doing in my hands right now as I'm present in this moment, and the moving it's moving like this. It's very pottery wheel to me. That's the only way I feel like I can accurately describe it. And the riff Max played, I think, to me, invoked Jawbreaker a little bit. I don't know. I think about Jawbreaker a lot with the song. I don't know why. I mean, like, there's perhaps some similar elements. I don't know if other people feel that too, but I don't know. Yeah, and I think the lyrics just kind of started pouring out about, like I think like addiction and acknowledging, the person who is the addict, and then also having to contest with you inside, having to deal with the knowledge of that person that you love also being caught up in these cycles, and kind of, I guess, like playing between like those two perspectives. But it was very emotional, I think, after we like wrote it and finished it, and I still listen to that now, especially when like that piano comes in, and Ken DePato had added that there's like some acoustic guitar at the end there that he added that really kind of just brings another layer, another level to the song. And it's still a little emotional for me to listen to, because I feel like we really hit on something there that we didn't plan on hitting on at all, but it came together.
I think we have to get the silliness out of ourselves in those first like couple days to really tap into something like a little more sentimental and like sincere.
Yeah, and I love and I think and in a way, now if the listener is listening or the viewer is viewing and like is hearing the story, I feel like, like if you go and you listen to Weekend at Mauchie's Volume 1, I feel like it does kind of tell that. It's like literally there's the stories of the songs themselves, but it's literally about the story of Roe and Max in the studio writing songs from scratch and
just going for it.
And I think that's like the emotional progression that happened. And I think too, we were just, I think really proud of it. And we were just like, I think at the end of it, I think both of us were like, damn, like, yeah, like we can do this. I even feel like I remember saying to Max, like, man, it's a real shame that like we just don't do this for a living, because I feel like we could, honestly, and I was just like, this could be the day job, because I think we both felt like, I think like, I don't know, I don't want to say like masters of our own domain, but like, I don't know, like I felt like we understood the assignment, even though it was like a self-created thing between each other. And I feel like I felt very fulfilled, and felt like we were able to like deliver on that. Like we were able to like create some cool stuff. And the thing about songwriting, which is a silly statement, it's not rocket science, but I'm always astounded by songs. And I probably said this to Max too, but it's like, this didn't exist. Like at the end of the week, I was like, this didn't exist on Sunday, and now these songs exist. And we created like life here, like, and that always is just like absolutely mind blowing to me. Just like the creation of songs, it's like you are literally giving life to something that did not exist, days ago, moments ago.
Or did it already exist, but in another form?
Yeah. Who's to say?
Is time linear?
Right, I know.
So does that mean that you are a marble sculptor, not a clay sculptor, Max? Looking at the pillar and seeing the.
I'm actually
face
an
beneath.
alien. I'm actually an alien, but nobody gives a fuck. So
You are the
That's
alien.
great.
You're laughing that this is fictional, but you're thinking
That's why the song was so good, because he's like,
Yeah.
this is about
I was like,
me.
oh, I got this. Yeah.
No, that's some real shit though, Ro.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real, yeah.
I think it's important too. I don't know how much, we'll wrap it up unless you all, want to rant about something else. I'm totally fine with that too. But what you were saying reminds me of what's been on my mind a lot with AI in music. And I think that, I don't know, like at the end of the day, for me personally, this whole story and the whole mythos of like a creator or two master creators in their own right, meeting together and creating something and creating a story and being able to share that's what I care about.
Yeah.
It's the songs are great, but they're almost just marketing for the story behind and the meaning behind it. So I'm a little more optimistic about AI in music. I just see it as unlocking more potential for the creators, but that's just me.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that is a whole other tangent. But I hear you, and I think I think all of those conversations I think are like worth having for sure. But I know that I think I guess like speaking of AI or whatever, it's like I don't know if I'm completely like AI will never take over. I don't know if I feel like that optimistic, but I'm also like. The whole point of music is that it is a shared human experience, whether you are writing it or listening to it. Somebody else made that, and I think that's the takeaway. It's like it's a great unifier of the human experience, and it's a cultural thing that we all share. Regardless of genre or geographical location. And I think sometimes it's very easy to like lose sight of that because the world is crazy and large and the internet is even larger in some respects. But no, I think I really proud of the songs Max and I wrote together. I would do it again in a heartbeat. And, I think also too, like, I'm really excited to see after, this is out and of course, pending Mac's willingness and busy schedule, I'm curious to see if a volume 2 will manifest and who that will be with and what those songs will sound like. Because, Max is just an incredible creator to work with. And I think if anybody sounds like that's something maybe they want to do with good old Max, I mean, I think it's worth chatting about,
Hit my line.
Yeah, DM that man. Hard hands.
All right, y'all.
Claw.
I think this is a good break. I usually am doing Google Meet at work, and I do the heart emoji all the time. That's why I did that. I'm like, they don't have any emojis here. Thumbs up.
Riverside FM. No emojis.
Yeah, I always
to
gave
add.
the thumb.
I do both.
I like the party emoji on Zoom. or
Oh, the
applause.
party
You
is
do a
the
little
applause
of
is
that.
good too.
I like
Yeah.
the shaka.
Very cool.
At Spotify, they have like a Spotify logo with a heart that everybody uses all the time. So that's why I've gotten into the heart. Because I'm like,
Gotcha.
the absence. But I kind of dig it because, it's nice to throw some love around.
Absolutely.
And listeners, we love you. You want to give any plugs to where to find this stuff? Roe and Max.
Yeah,
Where
Weekend
can they
at
find it?
Mauchie's Volume 1, available on Bandcamp, on Pizza Bagel Records Bandcamp, which should be pizzabagelrecords.bandcamp.com. Should be on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, and any other, it should be on YouTube, any other streaming service that you like, you should be able to find. And if you can't find it, why don't you hit one of us up? And we'll send you a little link.
And where do they hit you up? Roe Knows Best.
At Roe Knows Best on Instagram. That's R to the O to the E knows best. And Max, that was my cue to Max.
I have like 3 Instagrams. I don't know.
Hit him with,
You'll find me.
one.
Just
Okay.
find me.
Yeah.
I'll direct
Just
you.
find
Domestic
me.
Bliss recording. Right?
Yeah, there you go. Rich found me.
Yep. Exactly.
Just find me.
He's around.
All right, y'all.
All right, Rich.
Thanks, Rich.
Thanks for listening
thanks-
to the listeners.
yeah, thanks so
for
much. Thanks for
sharing your
having
story.
us.
Yes.
Of course. Anytime. And we'll catch you guys next time.
Sounds good,
All
Rich.
right.
Thank you.
Bye. Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Go Knicks.